Hello everybody. By a show of hands, who knows what tennis is? If you're watching this video, you should have your hand raised because tennis is one of the biggest sports in the world and it has a massive following. So you're thinking to yourself, wow, tennis is one of the biggest sports, so people should know a lot about it. But the sad reality is that people don't know enough about tennis since it's super complex and takes a lot of knowledge to understand the game at its true core. So in this video, we're going to go over the basics so you can learn how to play without needing all that extra explanation and unnecessary time wasted. So when it comes to tennis, the basics are divided into three categories. You have the rules of the game, how the game is played, and the technical skills you kind of need to get better at the sport and the skills that you pick up while you're playing the sport. Now, when we get to the basics, we mean the rules and the scoring. How the scoring goes is it's very different than regular sports because most sports follow the 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, you score a goal in hockey, that's 1 point. You hit a home run, that's 1 point. You score a goal in soccer, that's 1 point. Tennis isn't really like that. Tennis is divided up into three little categories. And those categories are how you score the game. So at the highest, you have the sets. The sets are the most important thing, and that will result in a victory if you win. How to get a set is you have to win a game, but in order to win a game, you have to win the points. So those are the three main categories that everybody should know. Now for the scoring, you have 15, 30, 40, then game, or deuce if you have to win by 2, because 40-40 means you're tied, so you have to win by 2. Now, nobody really knows why the scoring is like that, and I'm going to be honest, I don't know why it's like that. It's not really that much of an interesting thing, it's just how the scoring is different. But now you know how the scoring works. Then we get to the rules. The rules are very straightforward. You have the ball, you bounce the ball, you serve it, and then once you serve it diagonally, you play the point out, and whoever hits the ball out loses the point. That's as basic as it gets for the basics, but when you get into things like serving, where you have to make sure that you're standing behind the line, you have to make sure that the ball doesn't bounce, those kinds of things, then you get into another territory that makes it a lot more complicated. But to be basic as it is, to be as plain and simple as it is, you have to serve the ball in the corresponding court, the little square, and then you have to play out the point after that by hitting back and forth with your opponent, and whoever messes up loses the point. Now that you know how to score, now you need to know how to score. So when we get into the next topic, that is the types of shots to hit. So for the shots, you have two sides of each coin. You have the forehand and you have the backhand. Now, when we get to the types of shots that you can hit, everything falls along those two umbrellas. You have the forehand that you can hit from the back of the court, otherwise called the forehand ground stroke. Then you have another shot called a volley. And a volley is very synonymous in every sport that you play because every sport will have it in some way or another. A volley in tennis is when you hit the ball out of the air and you don't let it bounce. That is the most important part, is that it does not bounce. Now, when you get to other things like other shots that are called overheads, overheads are when you spike the ball down with your racket and as opposed to hitting it up. Those usually correspond with where you are, which is the next part of this section, which is called the zones of the court. In tennis, you have 3 different zones, and each zone has its own unique properties and things that you do in that zone. So the first zone is called the rally zone, and the rally zone is where every point will start. The point can finish there, but it's always going to start there. The next zone is the approach zone or the setup zone, where you will go from the rally zone to the setup zone, and then the setup zone will lead you to the next zone. Now, in the next zone, it's called the kill zone. I'll explain why, but the kill zone is the most important part of the court. So for each shot, let's say you want to hit a forehand at the baseline, which is the back of the court, you will be in the rally zone. When you move up zones, you never want to move back, because once you move back, you give your opponent a lot more time to react, and the court becomes way more wide open for them to use. Now, for the approach zone is a very good 1-2 punch for the kill zone. So you hit the approach zone, and then once you hit your shot, you want to run to the kill zone, and then that sets you up pretty perfectly to end the point. And it's called the kill zone because every single ball dies in the kill zone. When I mean die, I mean the point is over once you're in the kill zone, because once you get there, it's pretty much over, because you want to set it up and then put away the ball. Now that you got the scoring, That's the hardest part. The easiest part is what we call the technical skills. The technical skills are things that you can learn in this sport, but you can also learn in other sports. Now, I know you guys have heard of things like, footwork and all of this stuff. So for footwork, it's more or less of you have to make sure that you're bouncing on the tip of your toes, like the balls of your feet. It's very much of an active sport. You can never be caught slipping up by being on your back feet. And you learn footwork in other sports like soccer, football, track, baseball, pretty much any sport that you can think of. But footwork is pretty much one of the most important things that helps you become a better player, because increasing your footwork and your body work, it makes you a much faster player and more fluid because your motions become more uniform. Now, for the last thing, we call tennis IQ. And tennis IQ is more of a thing where you kind of learn it as you go, but it's basically just the nitty gritty of, I see that this person here, he looks like he's running to the right, so let me hit the ball to the left and catch him slipping. But that's basically how it is in its most basic form. So now that you know all of these things, you're ready to hop on the court for your first time. But you want to make sure to grab a buddy, because it's never fun to learn by yourself, because tennis is a sport you got to play with others. And with all these basics, you have the rules of the game, the types of shots to hit, the types of things you know based on playing the sport. You can grow as a player with your friends. And because tennis is such a cool sport, it's very coagulative, and all of your friends that you make with tennis become your lifetime hitting partners, and you guys can grow as you get better. I hope this guide was useful. In today's video, we learned about the basics of the game, how to play the game, and what you learn from the game. And I hope you use these skills and you become the best player that you can be. Thank you.